And now we return to tonight's top stories in international affairs. And for that, I'm joined by former U.S. Ambassador to Poland, Daniel Fried. Hello, Mr. Ambassador. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, now we have two Ukrainian ambassadors out the door. First, let's start here in Poland. The Ukrainian ambassador to Poland, Vasyl Bodnar, has been recalled to Kyiv. We're all aware of the recent diplomatic tensions due to Zelenskyy naming a special forces unit after the heroes of the Ukrainian insurgent army, which were responsible for the massacre of Poles during World War II. Now, do you think that Kyiv is trying to reset relations with Poland? What's your take on this move?
I think that recent steps in Polish-Ukrainian relations have been constructive. That is, President Zelenskyy's meeting with Prime Minister Tusk was a solid step forward. And I think we're hearing various signals from Kyiv that they want this unhelpful quarrel to end and to move on in a direction that is both in Poland's interest, Ukraine's interest, and the interest of the entire free world. Quarreling about the 17th century or World War II is an endless well of resentment, and that benefits only Russia. It's important that Poland, Ukraine, and the whole free world unite to resist Kremlin aggression. And I think the Polish government has been consistent in that from the beginning.
Yes, and I was hoping by August we would move on from this topic, but yes, you're right. It's a can that can remain open for a very long time. We also see a shakeup in the United States. Kyiv has recalled the ambassador to the United States, Olha Stefanishyna, and it seems that the now former Prime Minister, Olha Stefanishyna, will take the reins, but that hasn't been confirmed quite yet. From the U.S. perspective and Ukrainian, what's going on there in the United States? Why remove Ms. Stefanishyna from the position and put in the now former Prime Minister?
Well, it is beyond me to understand all of the reasoning in Bankova, meaning the presidential administration. Ambassador Stefanishyna did a solid job in Washington, and that's not easy. It is not easy working with the Trump administration, working with the, let us say, curious range of American opinion about Ukraine. But she did so, and she did so effectively. I wish her all the best. Of course, I look forward to working with the next Ukrainian ambassador, whoever it is. And that job will not be easy, given the volatility of the Trump administration and the ongoing debate within that administration about what U.S. policy toward Ukraine should be. It's not easy, but I wish them well, and personally, I'll do everything I can to make it a success.
Now, back to our region, Zelenskyy has announced earlier today on social media that he would like to launch the Carpathian Initiative. It would include Ukraine, Austria, Romania, Serbia, Poland, Hungary, Czechia, and Slovakia. What are your thoughts on this idea, and what areas could it be the most useful?
When I first heard of it, I was immediately reminded that there are Poles who have been pushing a Carpathian Initiative on their own, talking about relations with Ukraine, bringing in Romania, bringing in Slovakia. So this has been also a Polish idea. My first reaction was, make it work. Better a Carpathian Initiative than some new study of the horrors of World War II or Polish-Ukrainian disputes over the centuries. So I would say take this initiative and make something constructive out of it. After all, there's a new government in Hungary, which is far more constructively oriented toward Ukraine. The Romanians, despite internal politics, are solid, pro-Ukrainian, anti-Kremlin, or anti-Kremlin aggression, I should say. And Poland can play a good role in all of this. So when I was a professional diplomat and some other country came up with an initiative, my first thought was not how to criticize it, but how to take it, make it work, make it constructive, and run with it.
Yes, and obviously with Polish-Ukrainian relations the way they are right now, then something definitely positive. Now I'd like to move on to the situation with Patriot missiles. I mean, after this last barrage of ballistic missiles on Kyiv, President Zelenskyy said only one Patriot missile was shot down over the weekend, so it appears that the Patriots have completely run out in Ukraine. We saw President Trump make quite a fantastic announcement at the NATO summit in Turkey, saying that he might allow Ukraine to license and produce the PAC-3 Patriot missiles. But then, as soon as President Zelenskyy left the United States after Senator Graham's funeral, that decision seems to be, again, back up in the air. What should Ukraine do at this moment in terms to get its hands on Patriot interceptors? And can it count on its allies who have a lot of these missiles in stockpiles somewhere?
There are two aspects to this question. Ukrainian production of PAC-3 Patriot missiles was going to take several years to get up and running in any event. By the way, I thought that the offer of the Polish defense minister to help Ukraine build PAC-3 Patriots was excellent, a really forward-looking, intelligent move. But in any event, even with Polish help, this will take a while. Ukraine's immediate need is for already produced missiles, and I hope that the United States and Ukraine's allies can provide these missiles or other kinds of weapons to help protect Ukraine against Russian ballistic missiles. In any event, the need is great, and the Trump administration's mixed signals is both frustrating and unfortunately to be expected. We are now, all of us, used to this in the Trump administration. Some forward step is never quite as good as it seems and as we hope, and a backward step is never quite as bad as we fear. And so it is frustrating in this sideways motion and inconsistency, but it is not a cause for despair. It's a call to keep working with the Americans and keep pushing, as well as working with other allies.
Could Germany potentially be a key factor in this, in the sense that they have the permission to produce PAC-3s in Germany? They don't produce very many. Even when we look to the United States, it's like 60, 65 completed missiles per month. Shouldn't NATO be looking to increase this capability and try and get countries like Poland to start cranking out components as much as they can, and countries like Germany to actually manufacture them?
Yes. There are two aspects to defense production. One is to produce more of the weapons we know we're going to need, the weapons that we have production lines for. The West needs to ramp up military production. The second need is to figure out which new systems we're going to need. That is, unmanned vehicles, drones, unmanned land vehicles, all kinds of new military technologies, not all of them expensive. Some of them can be relatively low tech but effective. And we've seen this in the Russo-Ukraine war, that these technologies are necessary. So we need to be thinking about building the expensive systems that we need and building lots and lots of the less expensive systems that are going to be necessary for the modern battlefield. And we need to do this without the usual debates about whether America produces this or whether we're going to license other countries to do it. We need to be in this together. We need to be working to increase our respective transatlantic military capacity right now and fast, in light of Russian aggression, which is growing, and I'm mindful of the cruise missile that landed in Poland, and in light of the growing Chinese threat in the Western Pacific. So we need to get on with business and find a way not to waste our time with the interminable quarrels, some of which are generated by the Trump administration, about Europeans supposedly not pulling their weight. Europe, or at least major European countries, including Germany and Poland, of course, understand that much more needs to be done to build up defense capacity of the free world. So that's our task.
I'd like to follow up on the cruise missile that struck Poland, the KH-101. How do you think that Poland should respond to such a threat, such an incident? Of course, we've seen these before, I mean, in the form of drones or anti-ballistic missiles that have come down from Ukraine. But also, Ukrainians have asked the Polish government to potentially protect the skies over Western Ukraine. Should Poland consider maybe shooting down incoming missiles that may or may not hit its territory? How should Poland respond to this?
Poland should not have to shoulder this responsibility on its own. It is not an attack on Poland, it is an attack on Poland and NATO at the same time. And I emphasize this because Poland should not be forced to step forward. Now, the notion of defending forward, I think, is a very sound one. And the idea that there could be some kind of no-fly zone or defensive zone over part of Ukraine is an interesting one. My old colleague, Kurt Volker, former U.S. ambassador to NATO, has suggested this. And as he said, it's been around for a while, but it should not fall just to Poland. If it fell just to Poland, the Russians would be able to try to isolate Poland and retaliate against Poland. Poland should stand with its allies, and its allies should stand with Poland. Now, if the Trump administration were thinking in a consistent way, I think it would be launching quiet discussions of what the military options are, working with the Ukrainians, obviously with the frontline NATO countries, but not only. Poland, Romania must not stand alone. And I think that there are a lot of Americans who would understand this. And the message should be sent to Moscow: if you continue this nonsense, we are going to take steps that you're not going to like.
All right, former U.S. Ambassador to Poland, Ambassador Daniel Fried, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts on these matters. We very much appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And that concludes this edition of World News Tonight. Thank you all for joining us and watching. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.